Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they move through their pain, they realize that something worthwhile, something for the greater good could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesandgrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesandgrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Heroes in Grief today. Thank you for watching and listening. And very excited today because Reshma does not know this, but I'm into mindfulness and I really want to learn a lot about it. So I am with Reshma Kearney, and she is a widow through her husband's death by suicide. And so she's going to tell us a little bit about that, but then how she's taken that and some practices that she had throughout her life of mindfulness and helping herself, and how she now helps others in the same way. So I'm excited about that because I'm learning and I'm gaining some knowledge in that area. So welcome, Reshma. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Tom. That was a surprise. I'm happy to hear that you are learning to live a mindful life.
I'm trying very much. We'll get into that. So if you don't mind sharing your story, and because there's always power in the stories. And so if you don't mind sharing that, and then we'd love to hear about all the amazing things that you're doing now.
Yeah, well, thanks for holding space for me. You did mention I lost my husband to suicide. That was in 2022 at the end of September. And we had just gotten out of the Army 9 months prior. And we had just reunited as a family in Washington State 3 months prior. So between the time he got out of the Army and the time that we were together as a family, he made the move from Georgia State to Washington State, where we were supposed to start forever. And I stayed in Georgia to finish up the school year with the kids. He had depression and anxiety for many, many years. Unfortunately, he didn't feel safe or brave or strong enough to get help. And, just like a lot of survivors of suicide loss, I can say I never thought this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Sean was an incredibly hardworking, focused, dedicated man. He was, he was just a go-getter, and he never gave up. Even when we'd ask him to slow down and take a break, he just could not give up. And this was the ultimate giving up in my mind. And so it was a shock to us, but maybe not a surprise that he got to a place where it was so dark and painful that the only way out was to end his life.
Well, did you have any like did you both deal with this er, earlier on in the relationship? I mean, to the depth of that where, he really had some issues and had to get over them and things, or what was going on?
There probably were things that I might have overlooked. I was 26 when we got married, which by today's standards is so young. I knew that there had been challenges in his childhood with parents who got divorced in not a very amicable way, some estrangement with family, just a lot of stress overall. But what
Mm,
I noticed was we were able to get through it. We dated for a short amount of time and then we got married, and we were always able to get through stressful moments. But with every year, that stressful moment was a little bit harder and a little bit longer. And I'd say by the time we had children, I saw Sean go through like a downward cycle 1 to 2 times a year. And
mm,
each time it would be the same conversation about the things that were bothering him. And I would help him, but encourage him to talk to somebody, to ask for a break at work, to reach out to people. And he would refuse. So the few years before he passed away, I would say those downward cycles were a little bit longer and darker for him,
mm.
for
You
all
said
of us, actually.
yeah, you were both military?
No, he was military. So by the time he got out, he had been in for 16 years. He was an orthopedic surgeon and a lieutenant colonel.
Ah, was he in active duty
Yes.
as far as in the combat areas and things?
Yeah, as a physician, you're never on the front lines, but you're still out there and you're still, the locations are still being bombed at and
Yeah.
unsafe overall. He had been in He did 3 deployments, and his last one was in Syria, and when he came back, it was a few months later that he got out of the Army. So his
Uh-huh.
last deployment was not even a year and a half, before he passed away.
Wow. Was there issues with that with the military at times too?
Of course, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and probably a lot that I don't even know about.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. So sorry. So sorry
I
that you had
appreciate
to
that.
experience that. And yeah, horrible. And suicide is so difficult to deal with. All of the things that you process and, wonder about and internalize through suicide. I had a nephew who committed suicide. I shouldn't say committed. I keep saying that. Died by
Yeah,
suicide.
mhm.
I prefer that too, but I'm in my old habits still. So, and then also some friends, a couple of friends, and it really makes you wonder about a lot of different things. So it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, you experience this naturally. There's the initial time you have to get through and all of that. You had been practicing mindfulness already throughout your life, right? So you had some tools to lean back on. How did that apply, or how was that applied to what you were experiencing?
I So the kids and I started our mindfulness practices and way of life during the pandemic. So before 2020, I did a little bit of journaling and meditation and practiced yoga. But during the peak of the pandemic, when we were all quarantining and homeschooling, I brought in yoga and mindfulness practices as a way to break up the day for the kids. So we did yoga, breath work, went out, in nature, did grounding activities. Um, I had the kids start journaling. And at that time, it was more about, okay, let's learn about this yoga and movement. And okay, we can see that it's really shifting the energy in our home when outside of the home, there was chaos during that time.
Hmm.
And I then decided to get certified to teach kids yoga and mindfulness. So the plan had been once Sean got out of the army, I would continue staying at home with the kids, but I would on the side build a business in kids yoga and mindfulness because it was that valuable for ourselves. When
Hmm.
he passed away, that's when we learned that those practices weren't just ways to break up our day or fun things to do. They really became our lifeline in our healing. And I didn't learn that until I noticed how hard my healing was without those practices. So when he passed away, I just went into fight or flight mode, and all I did was take care of the kids. I can tell you it's been almost it'll be 3 years in September. And those first few months, the only reason I got out of bed every morning was because of my kids. I
Yeah.
got them to school every day. They were stronger than me. He passed away on a Friday, and they were okay to go to school on Monday.
Mm.
And so um, I did that for a few months. I just kept pouring into them, and I wanted them to get back to as close to normal of a life. But after doing that for a few months, I realized I was just burning myself out and I
Hmm.
wasn't bringing positive energy into this healing space for the kids. So
Mm.
that's when I remembered that those practices had gotten me through a different time of uncertainty and pain and loss, and I started to bring those back in. So it it
Hmm.
it started small, baby steps. It was dropping them off to school, and instead of going straight back home to get into all the paperwork, um, I would go for a 20-minute walk. And then after some time during that 20-minute walk, I would call my dad or my mom. Then I would call other family. Then I would start calling my friends. And then the 20-minute walk turned into an hour walk. And then I was getting back into the gym and yoga. I pulled a journal out. um, Slowly started to get back to my own practices because I was still keeping those available for the kids. Each of the kids use different forms of mindfulness to help themselves, but I wasn't doing that for myself.
So that there you were connecting instead of isolating.
Yeah,
Yeah. M-
exactly.
Maybe we should define mindfulness for people right now. What would be your definition for the layperson out there?
Yeah. Mindfulness is using your breath and being aware of your body to really anchor down into the present moment. So you are just focusing on your breath, your body, and your mind. And when I say your mind, you are allowing thoughts to come in, all of the thoughts, but you're giving yourself a chance to just observe the thoughts and be with them instead of brushing them away or ignoring them or questioning them or judging them. You're just allowing them to come. And when you do that, you become more comfortable with the thoughts that you have, and it kind of helps unfreeze you, especially in terms of grief and healing.
Hmm. It might be a good time for me to explore with you some of this right now because I think it'll be applicable to other people as well because I'm going through this. I'm 2
Hmm.
years from my
Yeah.
son's passing, and so I had a belief system. My mom passed a couple of years before my son, and my brother suggested I check out some near death experiences. He was looking into those at the time, so I did, and then I started exploring consciousness and mindfulness and all of these things. Not so much mindfulness at the time, I don't think. Just really looking, at, you know, my belief in the afterlife changed. I believe our consciousness exists beyond us. In a nutshell, that's pretty much what it is. And there's much more to that. I think you know that too. But so my belief was there for that. And then when Jeff passed, I began to explore after a bit. Same thing, just self-preservation in the beginning. That's all you can do. And then I started exploring these things and meditation and mindfulness. What happened with me was I really dug into it, and then I thought I understood what mindfulness was. So for instance, I'd be driving during the days. I was driving Uber and things just to make some money. And I would practice mindfulness in the midst of all my daily activities, just centering, maybe having a mantra running through my mind or whatever. I'd have people in the car. And so just focusing on that moment with them and exploring that. And so I kind of rested back on that instead of deepening my meditation practices and things, because I felt like I was really good at being able to do that quickly and bring myself into that moment and that time. And I still do it. But I have neglected the practice and the practices of developing further things and everything. So, um, I don't know, just putting that all out there. How would you work with something like that? Or, you know, have you had other experiences like that, maybe with people where they say that, where it's like, I felt I had a pretty good grip on it, where I was like, and I still, at times, even I'm standing in the store and I can sit there and I can just bring myself right into the moment, and I'm not worrying about external things. None of that stuff's bothering me. I'm centering right in the moment or with the person I'm with or what it might be. So, have you
Well,
had those experiences with? Yeah,
that's
go
it
ahead.
right there. That's mindfulness. That's it right there. So whether you're using a simple mantra to center yourself or you're doing an entire yoga practice, it's all about what is bringing you back to your breath, to yourself, and keeping you 100% aware of the present moment. And so if for you it takes a mantra spoken over and over and over, that's mindfulness. And that's the thing. I think people are intimidated by meditation or mindfulness because they think there's a certain way to do it and they don't think they can do it. So I know with meditation, people think that you have to sit and remove all thoughts from your brain. And that's not it at all. I've led a meditation before, and I explain that your thoughts are like lotuses floating on a stream. You're going to see them. You're going to notice their color, their speed, how they move in the water, but you're not going to ask about it. You're not going to judge it. You're not going to stop one lotus, right? You're going to let it
Or worry
pass.
about it, right?
Exactly. You're not going to think about the lotus that's coming or the lotus that just passed. You're just going to let it pass. And when you do that, you really learn a lot about yourself and a lot about, you know, where feelings are coming from. And we don't give ourselves enough time to sit quietly, but people think that you need to do an entire practice. I think a lot of people think it takes a lot of time, but studies have shown that even sitting for 1 minute, like put a timer on one day and set a minute and just focus on your breath. Inhale, fill your belly up like a balloon. Exhale, let it deflate for 1 minute, and you'll notice such a calming effect on your nervous system.
Hmm. Yeah. And when I know from my experience, when I'm able to do that, I don't always have to use the mantra or anything. It's something that I developed. It's love, compassion, peace, positivity, connection, abundance. I just say those things over and over. And sometimes I focus on one, or whatever. And it just brings back into what I believe the core elements should be. And
Mhm.
so, but other times it's just being aware in the moment and everything. But you're right. It's so freeing for me personally. What happens is those things that you're all worrying about that are clouding your mind as you get closer in. they just become, they're there, like you said, they're around you and they're there, and you can acknowledge them, but it's okay. I know that's there, and okay, but I'm back here. I'm focusing on this. That'll still be there, or whatever, the worries that you have and all these other things. And yeah, the calming element is extraordinary for me. And look at today, world events, whatever,
Hmm.
that you can get so worried about, so stressed with, and everything. And that's what I do in the midst of that. I just get back to that and say, no, there's so much more in my understanding of who we are, what we are really, and where we sit in the universe with all of that, instead of all these peripheral things that really, really, in essence, don't matter.
Hmm.
So it's very freeing, that's for sure. Hello, friends. I just wanted to take a brief break here in the podcast to make you aware of a very exciting partnership that Heroes in Grief has just formed, and that is with Get Griefy magazine. I'm going to let their founder and editor-in-chief, Kara Sanchez, tell you all about it.
Hey, Heroes in Grief listeners. Life after loss isn't easy, but it can be colorful and full of possibilities. Meet Get Griefy magazine, a vibrant resource filled with inspiring stories of life after loss, expert advice, and voices from everyday grievers and thought leaders. Together, they're here to help guide you toward the side of life that's left to be lived fully and authentically. Dive into Get Griefy for free on issue or snag a print copy on Amazon. Connect with us on Instagram at Get Griefy Magazine or visit getgriefymagazine.com to explore, join our thriving small business collective, or discover advertising opportunities. Let's embrace life after loss, boldly and together.
And now back to our episode. How do you, I looked, you work people through grief with this specifically, right? Both online and in person, right?
Yeah. So my one-on-one work involves movement, mindfulness, journaling, meditation, all of it. And what I like to do with one-on-one clients is look at their day, look at their personal lives, and see how we can incorporate mindfulness practices in a really natural and rhythmic way. And because, again, people are intimidated by it, and they don't want one more thing to do, especially when you're grieving a loss. You don't want to think about another to do. And so, what I do with clients is see where they are, meet them where they are, and ask them where they want to be. And then we work very slowly together because, as you know, grief is a lifelong journey, and we have to be gentle with ourselves and allow ourselves the time to fully process and work through it. And I like to habit stack. So everybody's getting out of bed in the morning. So what's something, you can do when you first get out of bed? Well, for me personally, even before my husband passed away, I learned at a yoga retreat to say out loud, I am grateful to be alive before I even get out of bed. And then I open up the shades in my room and I look outside at nature because that is also very calming and grounding for the nervous system. And so I do that with clients. We look at their day and we figure out, okay, well, you have this 3-hour chunk of time in the evening. You don't have to just watch Netflix for those 3 hours.
Right.
What can we do? Especially after we get up and right before bed. I feel like those are the two times in the day where it's really important to practice some of these things because it sets you up for the week, really. Um, so yeah, I do think that there's a mindfulness practice for everybody, but it's not one size fits all. It takes time and you have to try a lot of things. It's not going to help overnight. And I think people should know that it requires a lot of patience.
Hmm. Yes. A lot of patience, yes. But like you said, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to get into and to have the experience right away.
Yeah.
if you really want to do it.
Yeah.
You reminded me of I would love to find someone who could take my diet and say, okay, this is what you eat and everything. This is how we can make it a little bit better. And that's what
Yeah.
you reminded me of when you're talking about looking at their world and how you can incorporate it and everything.
Yeah. Well,
And
my
I think,
personal mantra is how can we make anything in our lives even 1% better?
mm,
How can you make yourself 1% more comfortable every day or every week?
yeah. And I will tell you folks, my experience and just a real regular person, and it works. It works and it helps for sure. So if I could encourage one person out there the same way and tell you that it definitely helps and works. Um, I did see that you work with children, like you
Mhm.
said, 13 and up, right? With with this procedure, your practices and things. A lot of people have a lot of impressions of the younger generation right now. I have found that a lot of them, when I was driving and things, and I'd pick people up, and I tell people this all the time, but I have a placard on the seats that advertises this podcast, and it says that my son died from fentanyl poisoning. I'm okay to talk about it, so it brings up a lot of conversations, which is great, and I love engaging in that and it brings up it's brought up things from so many different kinds of people. I thought it in the grief phase, but because I put fentanyl on there, I have a lot of recovering addicts and
Mm.
things like that who have come in and talked to me. But I do find that I thought when I start talking about the spiritual side of things that we're talking about here, that a lot of them seem to have, that understanding now. I don't know what's going on in the younger generation, how that's working, but are you finding that with younger people? Because a lot of people would say, "Oh, how are you ever going to get them to focus in on doing this kind of thing or whatever?" And so, are you finding that? And what kind of approach do you take with them?
Yeah, I do think that more and more kids are learning about mindfulness and even yoga at a younger age. I think it's because of their parents. I think it's because of schools. A lot of sports are incorporating yoga
Mm,
and mindfulness into training. So I I have not met somebody I've met kids who might not know a lot about it, but I haven't met any kids who are resistant to it. I think kids, we always say kids are like sponges. They just absorb everything and they have this wild curiosity about them. We're losing sight of that because we live in this tech heavy world now,
yeah.
but they want to be outside and they want to be barefoot on the grass and they want to, pick up leaves and make art. And that's part of mindfulness. They want to journal and um I think the thing about teaching kids mindfulness and how to tap into their emotions and be aware and expressive is to make it kid friendly. And so it has to be bite sized. You're not
Hmm.
doing even kids yoga. I remember I had said to somebody, I teach kids yoga and mindfulness. And this woman got excited because she thought her daughter was going to do a 60-minute yoga practice. And I said, no, I've done kids yoga here locally in our community, and I might do 2 yoga poses with the kids in a 45-minute to 1-hour session. We're not doing yoga. We're not meditating for 10, 20 minutes. It's again bite size. So and using a lot of visuals and art and hands-on. And I think it's more about connecting kids with each other while doing mindfulness practices. It's not just about the practices themselves.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. I think that because when you're younger, you're open to a lot of things really, and you accept a lot of different things coming at you because, like you said, the sponge effect or whatever, that's seems to be the way it is when you're a kid. You're learning about everything, you're exploring everything. So I guess it could fit right in with everything else, right?
Yeah.
That
And
kind of
different
way.
kids respond to different practices. So even in my case with my three kids, my son was 10, my middle daughter was 8, and my youngest was a brand new 7 when their dad died. And each of them has a very different way of expressing their feelings and grieving. My son needs breath work. He just needs to focus on his breath and he needs space. My middle one, who's not very expressive, she journaled a lot. She still journals. And my youngest one is a free spirit. She's a flower child. So the minute her light starts to dim, I know she needs to be outside, you know, throwing rocks and picking up sticks.
Hmm. Breath work. That could be something for someone listening right now who is not looked into this at all. That could be, I don't know. I always think from the skeptic standpoint, well, not skeptic, but just exploratory standpoint, the novice out there, I guess. Breath work. What does that mean?
um, well, it can mean a lot of things. And yeah, I think people use it generally, but breathing exercises, any type of exercise that's going to help you focus on your breath, turn off the external noise, and regulate your breath so that you can regulate your nervous system. Our breath controls so much of what goes on in our mind and our nervous system. And now, because we move at such a fast pace, we're forgetting how to breathe. There have been books written about how we're breathing wrong. And we are now breathing more from our chest. But when you breathe from your chest, it's short, it's rough, it's very shallow, and that actually increases anxiety when you're already in a stressed state. So it really, to ground yourself, you have to take the you know, deep inhales, long exhales, really fill up your belly. But like I said, a breathing exercise can look different for anybody. You can do a 1-minute belly breathing exercise where you're just focusing on your breath. You can do a more expansive breathing exercise where you're breathing into your belly, bringing it up into your ribs and into your chest, and then exhaling in the opposite order. Then you can get fancy and do, yogic breathing, like Nadi Shodhana, where you're closing a nostril and inhaling from one side, exhaling. And so there's a huge range of breathing exercises. But what it comes down to is just focusing on your breath to help regulate your mind and body.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I'm a singer. I'm a vocalist. Have been for years, and I think it was in 4th grade. I joined chorus in school, and I'm not from a musical family really at all. I'm the youngest of 7, and um, I don't know why I joined chorus. I always say there might have been a pretty girl in there or something. I don't know. But I joined and we had to audition to get in the chorus. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the best music system in the state and elementary all the way through high school. And so, but they taught us how to breathe properly for singing. And so when I hear in meditation, guided meditations and things, and you said it, fill your belly. I understand what that is, but a lot of people might not. Your diaphragm isn't it your strongest muscle and
Yeah.
biggest muscle? And so that's in your stomach. That's here, or is this your solar plexus actually? But when you breathe, and what we were taught about singing, because I use my diaphragm for that breathing, and that's why I do hundreds of shows in a year, and people are always like, how come your voice is not like destroyed? It's because I'm not breathing so much from here. I'm breathing from here. And there's a simple, technique. Like a lot of people, when they take a deep breath, watch my shoulders, they go, like that, and it's all here. And when you take a deep breath, when you're diaphragmatic breathing, you just go, and you didn't see my shoulders move at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all filling up because your lungs are expanding down and your diaphragm, and that's what you use for your stomach breathing and things. So that's a simple practice for people. And I think too that I was just thinking when you're talking about breathing, and that when I was when I started meditation too, and I'd listen to guided meditations, and I'd always think, okay, what's this breathing thing? They always focus on the breathing and get into this. And I soon realized that it's the central thing of what we have in our life always. And it's the core of our existence right there, breathing. And so it's always going to be there. So whenever we need to come back and center and focus, that is where we can go. That will never doesn't change. And
Mm-hmm.
so is that the essence of that thinking and that understanding?
Yeah. Your breath is always with you. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to it. And oh boy, the physiological things of breathing properly, a lot of people don't realize that when you yawn, it's because you haven't been breathing properly. You're
Mm-hmm.
tired, and there's an imbalance of the oxygen level out and inside the body. And so it needs to, you know, you yawn to get more oxygen in and things. And so, people just don't realize that sometimes when I'm very, very tired and I yawn a lot, I just start deep breathing
Mm-hmm.
because it helps it, you know? So yeah, there's a lot to that. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So what else are you doing? You do all this, and then you do anything else outside of that with this work that you're doing?
Not at the moment. I'm focusing on one-on-one work, and I had some groups this year, and I think I will probably get back to that. But with the summer and all, we're going to take a break from it. Um, I'm really proud of my kids for getting involved. Not so much my youngest one, but my son, especially my 13-year-old son, has gotten more involved in the work that I'm doing, especially on social media. He's been sharing about his own grief journey and his mental health. And that's been really special. And I'm hoping that moving forward, he and I can do some more work together. We've dreamed about having a podcast together, but he's also 13, so he doesn't make the best co-worker or colleague. But I've liked seeing them get more involved because I think that it helps them with their own healing. I'm sure you can relate, and I think you have said it before that with the work that you do, you're giving people space, but you're also giving yourself space to heal.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with my family. So it's been fun to get them more involved.
Mm. Little different with you because it's mindfulness and bringing your centering back like that. I've found sometimes myself that doing this, I don't want to get distracted from dealing with the grief the way that
Hmm.
I need to either, so it helps, and I think I've been guided in that a lot too. The universe has brought people into my path here with the podcast that, and boy, I never expected some of the things that we've discovered or that I've discovered about my guests, because I don't know, you have this preconceived notion, I think, when you're in this, and it's
Hmm.
very fortunate to get in some amazing circles of grief workers and things, and a lot of people, on the pod, having people on who are very qualified in so many different areas. But it seems to be coming back, or the reminders and confirmations about this type of thing all the time in my podcast. And so that's very encouraging because I feel that it's like, well, yeah, you're on the right path with this. So keep exploring all of that. Yeah, that's great. So your work can be done online. I want to remind everybody that for sure. And
Hmm.
we'll have your site certainly up on the show notes and all of that. And I lost it here for a second. Hold on, I'm bringing it up on my other computer. So I got it there. What is the website address that you have?
It is my first and last name, so it's www.reshmakearney.com. And I'm also on Instagram at Reshma Kearney. And that's probably the best place to reach me through DMs.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. So you can see about what you offer online there, and you spell some of it out for them, and the type of groups they can do either virtually or if they're in you're in Orange County,
Mm-hmm.
California, right? Um, Directly in that area too. Amazing. Did we get connected through Get Griefy?
Yes, so I did. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very fortunate to be part of that. And, a lot of things offered there for sure. We talk about
Yeah.
this collective all the time. People can join the collective. If you're out there and you're interested in joining the collective, you can. So you can always email me about how to do that or get a hold of Get Griefy. The link's always in our show notes too. So we can do that. Is there anything else, Reshma, that I don't know, anything that's been going on in your mind or things that you've been discovering lately that you want to share with everybody? Sometimes
Yeah.
these things pop up,
Yeah. Actually, it's June. It's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And
Mm.
I've been posting a lot about men's mental health and my personal story, honoring my husband, and also sharing our family's experience. And I think what it has reminded me of in this moment is that we are not alone in our stories, in our losses, in our grief. And no matter what you've been through, there is at least one person out there who gets it. And I was reminded of that because I've gotten so many DMs from people who've lost someone to suicide, people who are supporting someone who's depressed. And most surprisingly, and I think what's been really special to me this month is how many men are reaching out to me saying, this is where I'm at. How do I even begin to start talking about it? And I
Mm.
love that. I think that means we are starting to see a shift in the way we're treating mental health challenges, the people who have them, the way we're treating grief in general. I think we're moving into this era where everybody's going to be, not everybody, but more and more people are going to be comfortable and encouraged in sharing their stories. And when we do that, we learn we're not alone. And that's been really helpful to me in my own healing journey.
Mm. That's great. Yeah, I wasn't aware that that month was this or June was that for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good. I'm fortunate too to be part of a great men's group through helping parents heal, helping fathers heal. It's
Hmm.
called amazing. And because I kind of joined into that relatively early on in this journey, I take it for granted, I think, that a lot of men don't, there are men out there that don't reach out and that don't have those connections and things. They are available, and there's help out there for men in a great way, in a freeing way, really, where men can be men and then share that way if they want to, the unique ways that that occurs for them. So, yeah, that's very encouraging for sure. I think that. Yeah, there's a movement going on. I feel part of it.
Hmm.
Um, it sucks that we have to get into it this way,
Hmm.
but I always say maybe the universe is having these things occur for us because they are so impactful, and it causes this shift in us.
Hmm.
So, or at least opens us up to that. So that's the way I explore it, anyways.
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
doing the work. So be very proud of yourself.
uh, just trying to do what I feel being led to do. That's all. So.
Hmm.
Excellent, Reshma. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
I had no
you.
idea. I say this all the time too, because I really don't investigate too deeply into my guests because I like the conversation just to be what it is. And so I was very refreshed to see that, when I looked at your page and see mindfulness on. I'm like, okay, here's another confirmation coming through.
Yes.
So,
yeah, you're on the right path.
I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's a work in progress. I encourage anybody out there. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not some, the woo-woo stuff everybody talks about and everything. It's just not that. It's simple and it's basic, and you can do it and you can have it in your life. So I'd encourage you to be part of that or to get that part of your life. And Reshma can help you. So
Yes.
she can guide you in that. So look her
I'm
up.
available.
Yeah. The link will be in the show notes always, as we say. And Reshma, thank you so much again. Keep up your fantastic work.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.